All right, y'all, welcome back to Value Stack Podcast. Today's guest is Andrew Yang. Andrew is a natural leader and one of my favorite Bitcoiners in the industry, whether it's running the team of client service members at Casa or organizing the local meetups in his community, teaching us how to cook a thing or two on Twitter, or even, I swear he's going to get mad when I say this, but teaching us how to break dance at the Bitcoin conferences.
Oh.
Andrew's got a knack for pushing people outside of their comfort zone to grow, and it's truly one of the most inspirational and humble leaders that I've met. And particularly now, we could all use a little bit of staying humble. So without further ado, Andrew, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me today, man.
Damn, Zach, what an intro, bro. I appreciate it.
You didn't think we were going to hit the breakdancing piece, did you? Oh man, well, thanks again, dude. And I know we had to reschedule, so it feels even more appropriate now considering what the markets are doing. So obviously, Bitcoin's down in dollar price. We've seen this before. I know you've been in the industry for a while, longer than myself. So tell us, the listeners, give us what's your Bitcoin story, and how do we get from where we learned about it to where we are today?
Yeah, so I guess I got involved in Bitcoin in 2014, and the reason is because my buddy, I had a friend, and he just wouldn't stop bugging me about Bitcoin. He was like, "Dude, you gotta buy this. You gotta buy this." He was showing me like price charts. And I was like, okay, fine. And so like I eventually just like bought some Bitcoin just to kind of like, shut him up. And then I bought it, and then a month later, Mt. Gox happened, and then the price goes down to 300, and I bought it at like 800. So immediate test, like going through the fire. Yeah, but I was just a little too stubborn to sell it at a loss. And so I just kind of like, yeah. So, I mean, I knew nothing about the fundamentals. I knew nothing about like scarcity or whatever, or the tech. I just was like, I don't want to lose money. So I held on to it, and then tucked it away and just forgot about it. And then like, in 2016, 17, price started going up.
Right.
It hits $1,000, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I made my money and then some. So I sold everything. I sold all my Bitcoin.
What? You sold? I didn't know that.
I sold all my Bitcoin, and that year it goes to $20,000. Bro, I would have been set. I would have been set, bro.
Well, we're still at 20K now, so
yeah, I should buy back, right? Like,
so what you're saying is you're not truly an e-currency hodler. That's what I'm hearing.
Hey, that was a lesson learned. Okay, that was. After that, I actually started getting on Reddit and getting on Twitter, getting more involved in the community, and I was like, okay, that was a hard lesson learned. Gotta hodl this Bitcoin, never sell it. You never know what's gonna happen. So.
And so when was that, like 2018? Like when it started coming back down, you were like, all right, now I sold early, I missed the run up, it's back down now. I'm not gonna make that same mistake. Or like, when did you figure out this kind of like hodl? When did you become e-currency hodler, like from Andrew to e-currency hodler? Like, what was that process?
When it was like pumping up to like 5, 6, 10K, and then 20K, like that whole process, I'm really good at buying tops, bro. Like
Me too.
It's a gift. So I'm buying into it like whatever, and it's just like, I don't know. But after I sold it at $1,000 and it kept on going up, I started realizing, oh my gosh, like this is something I should sell. This is something that I should keep. And so, and started really diving into like how Bitcoin works, reading tons of like posts on Reddit, and then Bitcoin Talk, and even like the Nakamoto school.
The Pierre Rochard Nakamoto Institute.
Yeah, definitely. Reading up on Satoshi's old correspondences, and even Andreas Antonopoulos' book was really helpful too. So once I figured out, oh my gosh, like how powerful this was, like that really built my conviction. And so since then, I've just been buying and holding.
Well, what do you like? So having been held through a cycle and having worked in, I think you worked at River before Casa, right? So having done this, like kind of experienced this in multiple companies and multiple cycles now, what is there any trends that you see in today's market environment in June 2022 for those who are listening later on? Is there anything that you're seeing today that reminds you of like the previous market cycles? Because I hear a lot of people say, we didn't really have that blow off top. And I think to some degree we maybe didn't in Bitcoin, but we definitely did in like the altcoin space. So what do you think about that? Like corollaries between the two and how we stack up now versus then?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, culturally and, on social media, there's a lot of similarities. There's a lot of FUD. 2018, when it started tanking, you had exchanges kind of blowing up too. Like I remember there was like Quadriga. And so there's something about like the bear and like the initial descent into the darkness where it exposes a lot of people, and we're seeing that with Luna. We saw it with like we're sort of seeing it now with Cred too, right? Or not Cred, Celsius. Yeah,
Cred
Celsius.
happened, but Cred happened too, though, right? That was
Yeah,
was that last cycle, or
yeah.
or
It
maybe
was like
somewhere in between?
yeah, it was like 2020 or something. And so, and it's like kind of crazy because I sent out an email to our clients and I was like, guys, look, in these, I've been through a couple cycles like these before. In crazy times of volatility and in bear markets specifically, these are opportunities that stress tests the whole ecosystem. So if there's ever a time to get your Bitcoin off of exchanges preemptively, like it's right now. And so, and like, 3 weeks later, you had people, you had Celsius shutting off withdrawals. So, yeah, it was just kind of crazy.
So aside from that sort of waking up to the realities of self custody and the importance of it, what else do you think? Like do you think that the trends in like the NFT space and so forth, like is that sort of fizzled out, or do you think it's got further to go, or where do you think we are in sort of the market sentiment cycle? I mean, I know you don't claim to be like a trader or anything like that, but just curious what your read is.
Yeah, I think we're pretty close to the bottom. I think we're pretty close to just the bear market initiating, which is crazy to think that Bitcoin's only at like 20,000. In regards to like NFTs, we went through a cycle already, like in 2020 or something, with CryptoKitties, right? And that's kind of like I don't ever hear about CryptoKitties anymore. Like I don't even know what kind of traction that they have. They're not even based on Ethereum anymore. And so you have all these new NFT projects coming out, and the concept of NFTs has lasted longer than I thought. But what's happening is you're seeing different iterations of NFTs going on. Like first you have music NFTs, then you have celebrity NFTs, and then now you have
Pet
staking
rock.
NFTs, and you have pet rocks NFTs, and so like you might hear people say, "Oh, we're trying to find product market fit. There's this tech, and we're just trying to see which application to make sense for." But I don't know, like the iterations that keep on happening are happening faster and faster and faster, and each one of them is like losing more and more traction, right? So
Well,
I don't
and
know.
there's been scam after scam. I mean, like you've seen like people like, I don't know if you're familiar with CoffeeZilla, but he's like called Jake Paul out like over and over and over again. And like there's just like all of these, to me it definitely seemed like there was this sort of feverish mentality that was happening around Dogecoin and Shiba Inu and like the NFT space. And just like it really like, as someone who's focused on Bitcoin, it was kind of frustrating to see that. And like, I'm like, where's the blow off top in Bitcoin? Like I want that. Right? But,
Yeah,
uh,
and like the NFT thing is kind of like, and like the crypto altcoins, the biggest one of my biggest concerns is just like the low liquidity of it, right? Like you might have put $1,000 in, and it might have turned to 100K technically, but actually liquidating it, it's like maybe you'll get 10K, right? Because there's so little volume. Take
right.
that and like 100x that with NFTs. all you see are people, one person buying $1 million for an NFT. But what you don't hear about are all the other NFTs where it's just literally a one-on-one. Like there's no volume there. There's no liquidity. You have to like convince someone to actually buy it from you, right? And so
Right.
it's like taking the worst of low liquidity and just it's, I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to like actually.
So we've got a little more cleansing to go, is what where the bottom may be close. We've got a little until that stuff is given up on. I think that's when we'll be at the true bottom.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I think one thing that might be different about this bear market is that you'll have, 2018, a lot of the ICO projects kind of like stopped. They disappeared. And it's because all the funding resources kind of like went off with them. With these NFT projects, it's most of them are like venture backed. So even if like they, even if they, even if the price of ETH tanks, they don't really have a treasure in ETH. Like they have cash on hand, so they might be able to like go through the bear market a little bit longer than you would with like the token ICO projects where they fundraised in tokens and fundraised in ETH and like they kept it in ETH and now they have like no money to operate.
Right, because their reserve went down by so much
Exactly
at the same time that their native token collapsed. Yeah,
exactly.
man. I think I've heard this term reflexivity a lot lately, and it's kind of like it's like the opposite of the flywheel, right? Like the more successful it gets, the more successful it becomes. Like reflexivity is kind of like that same property, but I think it's in both ways. But like in this case, in reverse, like where like with Terra, like people started depegging it, which made more people start depegging it, which made more people which made like people think that it was going to stay depegged, which made people start speculating on its depegging, which like made it depegged for good, So that's like these like like I hear a lot of people tout like about these like DeFi Lego blocks, and I think that's one of the least like the least discussed parts is like it's really cool. Like don't get me wrong, like I think it's super cool to like have these like financial Lego building blocks that are like composable into one another, but you start also compounding the risk, right? If you have a protocol error with like one of these, that could lead to like cascading effects into multiple. And I think that's what we're seeing now. Like I truly do.
Yeah, and what's kind of scary is that I know that in the there's a group of people who are super bullish on under collateralized loans, and I'm like, that is just the worst way to go about creating like a stable coin or something like that. And it is just like that is not what you want to do. Like collateralized loans itself are risky, right?
Right.
So to under collateralize it is just even scarier.
Well, and that like I've called for Celsius to be like the kind of the harbinger of the bear market for a while. You can listen to some early value stack episodes where we talked about it. And my biggest concern was that was they're over collateralized with the wrong assets. And so although like it's like sure they're 150% over collateralized, but with what?
Right.
With something that could drop 75% in 5 minutes, because then in that case the situation's changed, right? Like the thing I've always said about Ledin, which is really like the only lending platform that I've ever spoke positively about as far as I can remember, is that they do these like proof of reserve attestations, but more than that, it's that they only mess with Bitcoin. So like if they say they're over collateralized, like what is their collateral? Like what's the quality of that over collateralization? Is it shit coins or is it Bitcoin, right? And like is it liquid or is it not? And so I think that's what we're seeing Celsius kind of get caught in this like situation where they have, sure, maybe they were over collateralized, but their collateral was sort of mark to market overvalued. And by the time they actually sold it, I think you had said this earlier. Like if you go to sell like, a bunch of these useless tokens in the market, you find out there's no liquidity there, right? So even though it was 150% over collateralized, when you actually go to try to liquidate that collateral, maybe it isn't over collateralized any longer.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think percent wise, like let's say Bitcoin and ETH, it's been somewhat similar. I think ETH percentage drop is a little bit more severe, but Bitcoin itself is a more volatile. It's a volatile asset in general, right? Like we were at 60K, what, like 4 or 5 months ago, and now we're at 20K. That's a pretty insane drop. That's more than 50%, right? So um yeah, it's just the nature of the markets. And like I think as Bitcoin grows, like the price grows, and to your point about blow off tops, I think that's kind of a good thing in terms of like the maturity of the market, because you're reducing the range in which the volatility exists, and so as more volume, more liquidity, more actors get in, I think the less volatility you're going to see. And so I don't know. Like the question remains of like, are we gonna see a blow off top again, or is this life now, where it's just a more stable top, more stable bottom, less volatility, less range?
Mhm. Well, I think that's a good spot to segue. Like, where do you think like Bitcoin fits into investing? Like, do you only do Bitcoin? Do you buy stocks? Like, how should most people think about like where? I know you're not a financial advisor, right? But like, where like how does it fit into your portfolio, and how do you think about DCAing versus market buying at these levels and other assets?
Yeah, Bitcoin is a major part of my investment portfolio. I would say like over 90%. And I do buy stocks. I do like trade altcoins, but like for me, it's kind of like I have a very short time frame in which I'm like buying and selling these things, and it's like maybe like a 6 month window. Um, and then whatever profits I make, I try to like sweep it back into Bitcoin. With stocks, it's kind of like I try to encourage people, invest in things that invest in things that you can do research on. And so that's why I've kind of like invested in Bitcoin / crypto companies and stuff. And even though like my my total net worth fluctuates like insane, like crazy, especially in this bear market, yeah, I feel confident in the things that I'm buying because I know the industry, I know the companies and like what they're working on and what they're doing. And so yeah, that would be kind of like my 2 cents.
Yeah. Do you? I'm curious. Like, how do you have like a strategy for like keeping yourself on track during these like types of bear markets, or like what do you tell yourself when the market's down to keep your morale up, or even like more like not in addition to just personally, like if you have like, dude, it's been a tough time. I mean, like we've been doing well at Casa just because people are waking up to the importance of self custody, but it's still a challenging time, right? Like what do you tell yourself or your friends or your family or your teammates? Like how do you get through these tough bear market times, and come out stronger ahead?
Yeah, it's hard. I buy more like when I can with whatever powder I have. Sometimes I buy too early. Like I bought at 30K a little bit, and then now it's at 20K. I'm like, ah. Um, but yeah, it's just knowing that the types of events. This is why it's so important to have confidence and conviction in like what your investments are,
Mm.
right? And that's why, like, if I was an altcoin trader, uh, I'd be so scared because I don't know. I don't know if these assets are ever going to recover, right? But with Bitcoin, I'm like so confident. I'm so confident that at minimum, it's gonna like retouch the last all
Can
time
you
high.
can you briefly like touch on why that is? Like just I mean I obviously like I know like why, but like why are you so confident about Bitcoin? And what is it about Bitcoin as opposed to other crypto that gives you that confidence?
I mean, like with Bitcoin, it's like the scarcity, right? Number one. Number two, it's the network effects, right? It is a globally traded asset, and there's tons of companies that are investing into it and building on top of it. There's miners like publicly traded companies who've invested millions of dollars into processing Bitcoin blocks, right? So when I look at the whole ecosystem, it's so robust, right? And even from like an open source perspective of all the devs that are contributing to it, we have like companies that are sponsoring open source Bitcoin devs, which is insane, right? I think one criticism in the early years of Bitcoin, a Bitcoin was that it's going to face the tragedy of the commons. but it hasn't. It's actually proved the opposite, right? Like this is a shared common resource that the whole world uses, and everyone is taking care of it, right? And so even if the price may like go down, it's like when you see the whole ecosystem being built on top of Bitcoin, it's really hard to ignore. Uh, so that's kind of like how I have like my conviction in it, and that nobody's going to stop working on it, and like the whole ecosystem isn't going to disappear anytime soon.
Right. I mean, you're seeing like Fidelity add Bitcoin to 401ks. You've seen a bipartisan support for a crypto bill in Congress. You've seen, I mean, more media coverage than probably ever before, right? Like, it's like the hash rate's at an all-time high despite the low dollar quote price. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, like if you really understand Bitcoin, I think it's very, you can, you're armed with the ability to see it from that perspective. Right? So,
Yeah, and when you have like these other altcoins, like this is what makes Bitcoin different. You have people in various communities that have Bitcoin, right? When you look
mm,
at a lot of the other altcoin projects, they just have a very focused community, and they just have a bunch of stands. But you don't have people outside of that circle that are like actively buying into it, investing it. And so just even from that perspective, that lets you know how entrenched Bitcoin is across the whole ecosystem, as opposed to like a small segment of like of a community.
right, right. It's like the crypto ecosystems are built around Bitcoin, not the other way around.
Right. Right.
So I mean, I know we've been talking about Bitcoin. I want to talk about your leadership roles. Because I gave you this grand intro about how much of a badass leader you are, and I meant
Am
every
I?
word, meant every word of it, man. I like have been thoroughly impressed. I mean, you're not like that much older than me, but you know, I've seen your composure in tough client circumstances. I've seen you rally team members together, and I'm just like, oh, really, truly, I'm like very impressed, like with your ability to, especially like handle situations with poise when they're difficult. And so I'm wondering, like, if you have any, like, any tips for like people who want to like become a better leader, like to maybe like leaders that are like team leaders, or managers, or even just people who want to like take a more proactive like role within their like friendship circle. Like how do you like, do you have any like tips on like becoming an effective leader, or like keeping your perspective when things get tough?
Yeah, I would say like what helped me kind of get to where I'm at today is just to do the job and do it well. Um, and by doing that, I think people start trusting you more, and you earn people's respect. Um, and taking a lot of initiative to see where there's a lot of holes or gaps in the organization, and how you can create processes to kind of fill that up and solve these problems in a if in the most efficient way, in a way that's best for the company. I think people start seeing that happen more and more, and they begin to trust you more. And not only that, but like you can start helping other people achieve their goals, right?
Mm.
Like when you see that someone's trying to do a project, you kind of pitch in a little bit there, and that kind of helps build some like camaraderie. But yeah, and also trying to infuse like positivity and wherever you can. So
Above
like
the
at least
line, man.
stay above the line. But it's kind of like so I took strengths finders in the test, and one of my strengths is positivity, right? And so whatever I'm trying to do, I want to make sure that I'm on like a good footing with whoever I'm working with, and I'm fusing positivity and in situations that may be more difficult or whatever. So yeah, just like take the initiative, um, learn how to like solve problems in a way where like someone else doesn't have to kind of step in, like you fully solve the problem, and then yeah, just kind of do your job and do it well.
That's one of the things that I've seen you kind of embrace, this like player coach mentality, where where you don't try to micromanage, at least like from what I've seen. Like you've really like you find people's strengths and let them lean into those, and not only does that get results, but it also increases the cohesiveness of like the team, and improves like your relationship with them, right? Because they like respect you and appreciate you for looking at them as an individual with something that they can contribute. I think like this is not like a Casa pitch, like, but that's like something that like many of the people at Casa do well, like my team as well. Like,
Yeah.
and was one of the reasons that I joined is because like I met you and some of the other team members and was like so like blown away by the individuals, right? It's like Bitcoin is in the crypto markets like are volatile, and like building a crypto company is volatile, right? So like having those people that are not going to dance on graves when they are like, I told you so, I was right. But also those same people that do when times are tough, like instead of doing that, like say, hey, like where can I like lean on you to like in your expertise, right? I think that's something that like you've done well. I've seen, and I would share like a similar viewpoint in that, like having this sort of humility, right? Like say Marty, Matt, they say like stay humble, stack sats, right? Like I think like the stay humble part is like just as important as the stacking of sats.
For sure. You
Because
don't want to be
like
a douchebag. You don't want to be a rich
right.
douchebag. Yeah.
Right. Like, you know, some people say their sats or their net worth, you know, like Bitcoin's their net worth. I think your network is your net worth. Maybe there's some kind of combination of happy medium between the two. But I've seen that, and like I think that a lot of it can be challenging too, like when we're working remotely and like where people don't have that same human connection, so they like don't approach situations of conflict with the same like embrace of compassion, right? And it's more like, I told you, I was right, I'm the manager. Like, so if I'm wrong, I guess our teammates will be telling me if they listen.
Yeah, they're tweeting at me right now.
Yeah.
You suck. No. But
So,
like, yeah.
no, sorry, go ahead.
I mean, you know, I care. So I manage like 3 managers, and like I love them. You know, I care about them a lot, and I think they feel that and they know that. And I set high expectations, but I tell them it's okay to fail. And I also tell them like, look, I want to empower them as much as I can, and so I let them try to define their own like goals, their own processes, and like strategies, you know. And so we work together in creating like KPIs for each department. And now it becomes like a game, right? Because now it's about like what kind of experiment am I doing to kind of improve the KPIs that we all agreed upon. And so the one-on-ones tend to be a little bit funner now because it's like, oh, I tried this experiment, I looked at this data, and I think we can try this. And I'm like, cool, you know? And like for me, it kind of makes my job easier because it's like, if you're coming to me with data, who am I to be the one to be like, no, that's a dumb idea, right? So I think creating like a culture and an environment where it's like it's okay to fail, like, but when we succeed, we're gonna like call it out, and we're going to just put gasoline on the fire and make sure, and just like, you know, make sure that that gets really emphasized. And another thing I try to do is that I always try to give credit where credit's due. And so if somebody has like an idea and it ends up being implemented, I always try to remember, like, I call them out and be like, hey, like, you know, this project, this actually came from like Phil or like Elise or whoever, you know. And so, and I think that lets them know that I see them. I do recognize the work that they're doing, and I'm not trying to take credit for myself at all.
Yeah. Well, I know Phil had that that killer video with Robert Breedlove.
Yeah.
The walkthrough. And I think this is a good reminder that the Value Stack podcast is on Fountain. If you have not heard of Fountain, it's the new podcasting 2.0 platform. You can stream Bitcoin straight to Andrew and I, and after the show, we'll split it. So he'll get half the funds if you do. And it's really amazing to be able to do this. But I wanted to plug that because I know that Breedlove does the fountain stuff, and when you said Phil, I just like was so. I think like one of the things that I want to like reply to that is that like Phil like is relatively new at the company, right? And like for you to give him that, like empower him with that, and like he's like a darn celebrity on the Breedlove channel now, right? And like for you to
Yeah.
like give him that like and let him do it and crush it, and like that's that type of like player coach mentality that like you're like building up your team members, right? Like you're building up those around you, not like trying to knock them down so that you can get to the top. I think that's like such a critical role for a manager, and such a critical approach for someone to take if you want to like have a fulfilling life, right? Like it's not fun being successful like by yourself.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, when that opportunity came, I could have totally been the one to be like, hey, this is mine. But I knew
Right.
I knew Phil would crush it. He has great camera presence. And I thought like he would totally enjoy it. And so it's one of those things. It makes me happy when my managers are happy. It makes me happy when like the people underneath me are growing and developing. So yeah.
Yeah, because you've historically done like the Casa demos on the YouTube channel and all. So I was a little surprised when I saw Phil doing that. So I'm glad, man. I think it really again speaks to your like approach as a leader, and like how you are like, hey, I don't want to do this all myself, nor am I the best suited for doing it all myself, right? So
Yeah.
that sort of humility, it works, right?
Yeah.
And so I know that you do like a lot of other things aside from Casa, like running this LA Los Angeles Bitdevs. Is that like the oldest Bitdevs aside from New York? Like, how'd you start this? Who's helping you run this? What's it like today? Talk to us about the LA Bitdevs.
Yeah, so I host these once a month. I think I've been doing it like regularly since 2020 or yeah, 20 or 19, something like that. We're definitely not the oldest. There's New York, and SF has been around longer, although they kind of stopped and now they're starting back up. Um,
COVID. Yeah.
yeah, because of COVID. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. Um, LA is such a big city. I feel like, man, we really need to. We need a presence, right? And I like 2017, 18, there was like all these like crypto meetups, and it was like so disgusting. Like, like you had all these like companies who raised tons of money through ICOs, and they're just like shilling their token.
Free
They're
pizza, free beer. Come buy our token. Yeah.
and you knew that they were paying off these crypto meetup organizers and to shill their stuff, and I'm like, we need something more signal, please, more signal. And so I started hosting these like Bitcoin meetups once a month. Thankfully I have like a really great team of volunteers, and I do my best to try to take care of them as much as I can. But yeah, like we have Steve Myers, he's like a developer. He helps with like the more technical topics that we talk about at Bitdevs. He also helps me with like website management and things like that. We have like a Damien, he's super dope. Like he's like a video editor, does like he edits our videos and posts it onto YouTube. And so it's kind of like everyone kind of has a role and everyone kind of like pitches in where they can. Um, and I think we all know that like we're not doing this to make money. Like we have sponsorships, but like all of it is just to break even. So like we're all very mission minded, and yeah, it's kind of nice to have a team because doing this by myself, oh my gosh, I would have burnt out like years ago. So yeah.
Yeah. I think that's kind of like one of the like people probably think like, most event organizers, I'm sure like they're trying to flip a profit on their events, right? Like I went to a crawfish boil a few weeks ago, and I was like, this dude is killing it, man. It's highway robbery, how much money he's making for this. So like I think that's like a roadblock, or like not a roadblock, but a misunderstanding, is that like people think that like Bitcoin is like all about the money, and that like it's like all about the Lamborghinis and the quick profits. And it's like, no, that's altcoins. Like Bitcoin's about like doing this stuff for free, or like even like paying to do it because you care about it so much, right? I like that's one thing I've picked up on, at least, like no, like as I've been in, more in surrounded by the industry. I'm curious, like, if you have any other like similar like misunderstandings, or like what do you think are some like misunderstood parts of the crypto or Bitcoin space that could use some like correcting here on Value Stack Podcast?
Oh gosh, I mean, Bitcoin mining is really misunderstood, and the energy that it takes to mine Bitcoin. Um,
In what ways is it misunderstood?
they think that we're boiling the oceans.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like I don't think we're not like what there's like a new study like 60-70% of energy being used is renewable resources. I mean, we're seeing examples in Texas where like miners are actually shutting off. Like Riot did this, and that's helping to with energy demands and making sure that the whole city gets served that they need to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there's just like so many examples of how we're like helping society and in developing research around renewable resources. It's like I don't know. There's a big disconnect, and like there's another thing is Bitcoin is for scammers or Bitcoin is for terrorists or like it's for the dark net, and I'm like, come on. And it's like cash is. If you really want to be serious, it's cash. It's not Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin, you can kind of track stuff. It's kind of like not a great way to do this. Like it's cash. So I don't know. It's like those would be like the two big misperceptions or misconceptions about Bitcoin.
So the energy consumption of mining and the natural proclivity for illicit use.
Yeah.
Interesting. I agree with both. I agree with both of those things. I think they're both widely misunderstood. As is self custody, like the importance of it. Like obviously, we both working at Casa recognize the importance of it, but I think a lot of people this idea or the importance of the idea of self custody being so important, right? Like that's only for the cash people, right? Like that's for the people if you're doing illegal things with it, trying to hide something. Why do you think self custody is important in Bitcoin, even though you're not doing something illicit with it where you don't want to be using cash like traditionally people think of this for?
Yeah, because Zach, your money is your money, bro. Your money is your money. Like when you give your Bitcoin or even your bank account to like Celsius or Coinbase or Bank of America, that's an IOU. That ain't your money. You're asking for permission to use it, right? With like your credit card or anything like that. So your money is your money. You should own that money.
Well, and what are like some of the trade-offs that people? Well, I guess let's start with the traditional banking system. Like, what are some of the trade-offs of not holding your own money, like keeping it in the bank?
Yeah, I mean, they can tell you where to buy stuff and where not to buy stuff. You're they can shut down your bank account randomly if they think like you're tied to some
That
weird
happened to me.
Yeah, like
I
wait,
bought
like
I bought too much Bitcoin, and they were like, "Hey, you need to come into the physical branch and
no,
show us your identity." And I was like, "It's June 2020. I can't because the COVID like pandemic shut all the branches down." And they're like,
shut
"Well,
the
sorry,
front door.
dude." They're like, "You got to come in the branch, or we can't unlock your bank account." I was like, "What?" And I was already kind of buying. I was already buying Bitcoin. That's why they did it. So like that was really like my like I was already down the rabbit hole. That was like kick me down the rabbit hole. Like I was already like leaning over, peeking in, and they're like,
Dude, I had no
Get in
idea.
there." Yeah.
Wait, did you have another bank account or were you kind of like
No,
screwed? You didn't
dude,
get
that
any.
I
Dude, Zach,
and
that's
all
terrifying.
my unemployment checks were going to a bank account that I couldn't access.
Oh my gosh. I wouldn't know what to do. I wouldn't know what to do, man.
I got an Uber to Fort Collins because they had a branch open there, which cost like $75 to Uber to the freaking bank. Anyway, yeah, so they can cut you off from your money. So I mean, obviously
But
we're getting
but people don't think of that, right? Like they
right.
don't think of the worst case
Until it
scenario
happens.
until like you're screwed.
And it's too late. Right. And that
And
happens in Bitcoin too, right? Like there is no IOUs in Bitcoin. The Fed can't print more Bitcoin like they can dollars if there's a catastrophe.
and I'm telling you, the goalposts are moving, right? And we're seeing that happen in real time. Let's even talk about like reporting deposits into your bank account. It was $10,000. That was the limit. Now it's $600. Now they're going to ask you like, why are you depositing over $600 into your bank account? Like the
And
bank
what?
has to
That's
report
a
that.
grocery bill now. 600
Yeah.
bucks.
Yeah, with inflation, are you kidding me? So like the goalposts are moving, and so even though like yeah, let's say right now we're good, we're fine, like you're a totally law-abiding citizen, goalposts can move in an instant. And so now something that was somewhat okay, that was like maybe in the gray area, all of a sudden will be in the red area, and like that's off the limits. Like you can't do that anymore. And now your bank account's shut down, and they didn't
Right.
even tell you about that ahead of time.
I do feel like that has been life lately. It's like moving the goalposts after the fact and then
Yep.
like penalizing you for it.
Mm-hmm.
What is like one thing that I'm sure there's more than one, but if you could just think of one, it'd probably be pretty easy. What's one thing like that that's happened this year in 2022 that like you felt like really surprised you, or that like where you're like, yo, like the goalpost got moved on me. What the heck? What's one thing that stands out to you that's like, yo, that was a bunch of BS?
That Bitcoin is at 20,000.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a little surprised too.
Yo, what the heck, Bitcoin? I thought 30K was your bottom.
Yeah. That's a good answer. I'll accept it because I am too. Yeah, I thought we'd have a bear market, but not like I thought. Like truly, like yeah, 30K seemed like, because that's where we bought him last summer, and then we went all the way up to 70 and 69K.
Yeah, and then I guess like other stuff is like the stuff around like I don't know if we want to get touch on this, but like wearing masks and like COVID tests to like travel and stuff internationally and all this stuff. That was kind of like not cool.
That was
Not
last year. Well, I would say what surprised me is that now we don't have to do that anymore. Because if you, I would have been on record. I probably was on record if you've listened to the old episodes saying that we're never ever going back to not wearing masks on airplanes ever again. I'm like always so pessimistic. I'm like, it's gonna be this way forever, and I
hope so.
So we are like I when we met up a couple of weeks ago, I was pleasantly surprised, didn't have to wear a mask.
Yeah,
found that a little surprising, pleasantly surprising. So I would say that's one thing for me. Like I did not think we would actually forget COVID was a thing so quick. It's all about inflation now, man. I'm no scared of no virus anymore. Honestly, like I hope that I was built with a strong immune system, and I do what I can to take care of myself. I drink a lot of water. I don't exercise that much. I probably should, but like
get on it, Zach. Let's go.
Yeah, I know, man. Value Stack episode 46. I'm going to be jacked. My shoulders are going to be
You got to do some burpees at the very least every day. 10
Dude,
burpees.
I saw you doing the burpees at retreat, man. You were crushing it.
I got to do it.
Dude, I like that dedication, man. It's impressive. We're like, all right, so like you keep that motivation up, right? You keep this like consistent hustle up. Where are you going to be in 10 years? Like it's 2032. Yeah. Jeez, we're 3. Okay, so the block reward is in 2032. That's 24, 28, 32 is the block reward is like what? 3, 1. It's less than 1 Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It's 2032. You're I don't know, 40 something. What like are you retired? Like are you living in America? Like what are you doing?
Dude, I would love to be retired in 10 years. That would be sick, dude. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to be, where I'm going to be in 10 years. I mean, hopefully, Casa has exited. We have either IPO'd or
not exit scam.
Not exit scam, but we
just want to set that record straight.
Yeah, I don't know. And then maybe I start like my own company or join another startup. But I think I'm probably going to stay in the startup space. It's like really fun. It fits my personality really well because I'm a grinder and I love solving problems. And so, yeah.
What about like non-work stuff? Like Do you want a family, kids? Do you have any like must do bucket list things?
Oh, I mean, I totally want like wife and kids, white picket fence, all that good stuff for sure.
Yeah. Any bucket list things like places you have to travel that you just haven't yet, but you know, when Bitcoin goes to a million, money's not an object anymore. Maybe
Seattle,
space.
Seattle's on my bucket list. Portland is, but I think I'm going to go to Portland in a couple weeks.
Oh, cool.
I think I kind of want to do a tour of Asia too, where like I go to Japan and then I work my way west. So like Korea, then like maybe Taiwan, Singapore, like that would be an epic trick. And I would do that for like 3 months or something.
Dude.
I actually was going to work remotely and do that trip, bro. And then the pandemic hit. Like, oh,
I'm thinking about doing that myself. So don't tell HR. But
I mean, dude, just do your job and you're like, who cares, right? Like, just take your
nah,
calls, you're done. You don't have to,
no.
yeah.
All right, don't tell the feds because the state tax was, you know. But dude, an Asia trip sounds pretty badass, and you're gonna laugh at how I segue into this, but it was a planned topic. So, speaking of Asian trips, all right, what are the biggest differences between you and the politician Andrew Yang? Because he was at ETH Denver, and I could think of a few off the top of my head, but I'll let you discuss it.
He's a politician. I'm not. Yeah.
So you're both leaders. All right. I'm hearing some similarities.
I'm actually Andrew Yang. Sorry. I'll tell you what, dude. Like clients, they hop on a call with me sometime and they're like slightly disappointed. And I'm like, dude, come on. Like
both in California.
You're getting a better Andrew Yang here. Come on. Let's be real.
Who would win in an arm wrestle? Andrew Yang, the politician, or Andrew Yang, the client services manager at Casa?
I don't know. Like, how tall is this guy? I don't even know how tall he is. It's me, bro. Like, I'm just. It's gotta be me. Like, I work out every day. Check out this Letterman's jacket. I mean,
I see the Letterman, dude.
Varsity captain of Casa right now, right? Like, come on. Of course, I destroy it. I don't know.
All right. Well, I think it's pretty easy. I could at least say that I know who would hodl with more diamond hands. Because I think I've seen him tweet about the diamond hands, but we both know who's the true currency hodler. It's our boy Andrew Yang. There's a little asterisk. It's like not sure which one.
I have a couple friends who are like, you know, advocating for political advocates for like Bitcoin and stuff, and they're like, oh, we want to do a fundraiser event. I'm like, dude, use my name, right? Yeah. Use my name. Just say featuring Andrew Yang. Like, if you just don't show my face on the website, like, you know, and then I'll show up, and they technically didn't lie to them. So
I think we could come up with a good like Casa marketing thing, like where it's like you and Andrew Yang, and you just go through this like series of challenges where it's like battle of the Andrew Yangs, and at the end, like the winner gets a Bitcoin or something. Like, dude, I think it would be viral. That's some good viral stuff.
I would totally do it. I would totally do it.
I'll bubble it up to our marketing team. So
let me slide into his DMs.
Which actually, these are all topics we're segueing amazingly today. So one of the other ideas I had for Casa for a viral marketing show was a cook-off between you and I.
What?
And so I would like, where did you learn to cook? Why do you love to cook so much? And what is your favorite thing to cook?
Okay. Well, first of all, you destroyed me. Like, you're a true pro. Like, you freaking gave a presentation on brining, and I was like, what? What? Yes, more of that. I'm learning from you, dude. Yeah. And so for people who don't know, we have a channel called Casa Cooks, and this guy sometimes posts some stuff, and I'm like, oh, that looks so good. I'm so hungry right now. I mean, my love of cooking is like, I love eating. I love eating food. So it's like, and then like,
eating and cooking are the opposite.
Dude, yeah, and then like what? I bought a cast iron skillet from the Bitcoin skillet dude, which you hooked me up with. Thanks,
Caleb.
Yeah, Caleb. That was great. So I just been like going on Google, looking up random recipes and just, you know, figuring out what works.
Did your family, like, because you grew up in the United, like I know your Korean family, like, but did you grow up in the United States or in Korea?
Yeah, born and raised in LA.
In LA. So, but
Yeah.
like, did your family immigrated from Korea, right? So, like, were they big into like cooking at home? Because that's one of the things I know about like Asian cultures. Like, it's big on family, like whether it's Chinese. I grew up with a lot of Vietnamese immigrants in New Orleans. It's all about like family and mealtime together with families. Like one of those most sacred parts, right? So, like, did your parents cook? Like, did you have siblings that cooked a lot? Like, you think that's where it came from, or you just love to eat? Like,
Yeah, I mean, food is such an important part of like my family stuff. Like I try to get dinner with my parents once a week. It's how I kind of stay
jealous.
connected with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mom is an amazing cook. Like I'm biased, but I think she makes like the best food. We're even doing these things where it's like I'll film her, I'll ask her to teach me to cook something, and then I'll film the whole thing from top to bottom. And then I'll cut it into like 1 second clip stuff and post it on
TikTok
Instagram.
style. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Cool,
So
man. Well, I'll have to check that out. I don't think I don't get on social media really, but you could send me some
probably better
stuff.
for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. Yeah. It's been a lot better. Um, cool. Well, I just had like a couple more questions on you, and they're really more kind of like not business or anything related, but is there any books that you're reading lately that you're like, you need to read this? Like fiction, nonfiction, anything that's like really just resonated with you?
I've been well, I've been reading like a couple of leadership books which have been really helpful. One of them is High Output Management, and the other one is Innovator's Dilemma. The Innovator's Dilemma is actually very interesting because I feel like it kind of describes how the Bitcoin and crypto ecosystem kind of came to be, but it also kind of explains like how really well-established companies are kind of stuck in a way, and if they don't adapt, if they don't innovate, and if they don't dedicate resources and departments to innovation, like they start falling behind.
Mm.
Um, and after reading that book, it kind of, you know how like the block started Spiral, and they gave him a whole bunch of money to like do a whole bunch of stuff, like open source grants and all that stuff. I was like, at first I was like, why? Like, what's going on here? Like, why would they
Right.
do that? But it actually fits into the model that the Innovator's Dilemma presents, where it's like they're a huge company, they have crazy market share, they're kind of reached like the limit, and they need to invest in like disruptive technologies.
Mm.
Bitcoin is a disruptive technology, and so I'm going to fund a group of people to just do a whole bunch of work in this area. And whatever comes out of it, once they find product market fit, we're going to like integrate it into our product and into our service, right? So um, that's been kind of helpful to like learn about. But another one is The Cryptopians by Laura Shin.
I just ordered that book. I haven't read it yet.
Dude, it is wild. She gets a lot of behind the scenes info in there, and
Right.
it really sheds a light on what life is like in the other side.
Yeah. All right. I've heard really good things, and it's like it's not fiction, right? But it's like it's like a story, right? It's not it's not read like a self help instructional nonfiction. It's like a historical recount of
Yeah.
a memoir. I think maybe they call it.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. It's really easy to read.
yeah, I'm stoked to read. I'm gonna get through it this summer. But I got some other stuff that I want to get through
Yeah, what are
too.
you reading?
So I'm about halfway through the referral engine, which I decided to read so I could like think about some ways that we could improve our like referral process at Casa, right? Like, how
Yeah,
do we like people love Casa, people want to refer Casa, but they're not like reminded to do it, and there's not a lot
yeah,
of incentives necessarily to do it. So I was just kind of thinking like, how can I come up with some better ideas there? And same thing is true for loyalty programs. Like, how can we like reward like longer term users? And so, but like I was saying, these are like business books that I'm like, they're not as enjoyable of a read. They're more productive type of read and like add value in ways that like I'm seeking for these books to do to add value. But like like I'm gonna go do some camping over the summer in the mountains, And
Ooh,
I think like the Cryptopians book, the Mandibles, is another one that I'm going to be reading over the summer.
Mandibles. What's that one about?
So my friend Andrew at Bitcoin Magazine, another Andrew, man, you guys are taking over. You know Andrew.
I do know him. He's cool.
Yeah, he gave me this book. I don't know if it was a birthday present or just because we're friends, but thanks, Andrew, for the book. And it's about the collapse of the like reserve currency in 2029. So it's like, I don't know. I got to be like in the right. I'm not reading it right this moment because it's all too harrowing and real with what's actually going on. But when the market
2029, so it's a future outlook.
Yeah, it's like a dystopian future book where like they are like the first chapter, the opening line is like, don't use the gray water to, or like, don't wash your hands with the clean water, like use the gray water, like, because they have to conserve water because it's like rationing and stuff because they're in a total currency collapse. Like, so anyway, you know, not like the most like feel good book, but I've heard and Andrew said it's a very good book, so I'm excited to read it.
Cool.
And then once a year I try to reread The Alchemist. I don't know if you know that book by Paulo Coelho. I'd say it's my favorite book of all time. Very short. Essentially, the whole point of the book is that this guy goes on a journey to find a treasure in the middle of the Sahara Desert. He gets these like premonitions, and the whole book is the journey of him leaving home and going to find the treasure in the Sahara. And at the end of the book, he gets to the Sahara. No, and that it's okay because it's this specific book. It works. At the end of the book, he gets to the desert and he finds these group of guys that got this premonition that live in the desert, and they say we got this premonition that there's a treasure on a shepherd's farm in Scotland. And he's like, what? That was me. I've got the premonition that it's here. And they're like, wait, but we got a premonition that it's there. And really the whole point of the book is to realize that it's not ever about the outcome. Mm. It's not about the treasure, because the entire book is not about the end goal. The entire book is the journey, the story that he goes through. And he realizes when he gets to the center of the desert that the treasure is actually at home. Right. So it's this like this sort of story. It's like if you are looking for something from outside of you, you will never find it. And also that outside goal is not the goal, but rather the process of going through the journey itself. That is the treasure. And so I try to read this book every year. Probably worth rereading right now, considering like, hey, that Bitcoin crash, it's part of the journey, remember? So but yeah, if you haven't read that, Andrew, I got a PDF of it I can send you. But
that sounds like a really interesting book.
Yeah, super good book, man. So all right, last question and then we'll wrap up. If we're going to karaoke, what's the one I'm hearing you sing?
Casey and JoJo, All My Life.
Can you sing us a few lines?
Dude. All my life.
All right.
Someone like you. All right, that's it. That's
all right. All right, we're using that in the intro.
Oh my gosh, that's not embarrassing.
All right, I don't have to put it, but I'm not. I'm probably not going to cut it if it's okay with you.
Yeah.
Well, Andrew, it's been, dude. It's obviously we talk every day, but like not at this length, and like we don't get to talk about like a lot of these things. So it's been a great hour chatting with you, man. Anything like, where can our listeners find you online? What do you want them to like take away or look up after listening?
First of all, thank you, Zach. This was a pleasure and honor. I feel really grateful that you would invite me on your podcast. Follow me on Twitter at eCurrencyHodler. I don't know when this goes live, but this weekend I'm doing a PlebFi in LA. Tickets are only $10. It's going to be Saturday, Sunday kind of thing. Come check that out in LA if you're a Bitcoiner, especially if you're a dev or even a designer. We've got bounties for both hackers and designers, which is kind of cool. But yeah, that's kind of it, man.
Cool, man. Well, that's the 18th. Is it what day is it? The 20th?
18th and 19th.
18th and 19th of June.
June 18th and 19th. Yeah.
And they can find more info about that on Twitter. You said eCurrencyHodler.
Yeah, e-currency holder. If you go to the other Twitter handle, Bitdevs LA, Bitdevs LA, you'll see all the information there.
Cool. Well, Andrew, man, thanks again so much for joining on Value Stack. I'm glad that you enjoyed it as much as I did, and hopefully next time we have you on, we're at 100K. I'm gonna one of these episodes we'll have somebody on. We'll be in a bull market again. So to all our listeners out there, if you want to give us a boost on Fountain or on Breeze or any of the podcasting 2.0 apps, I'll be splitting these with Andrew. They'll go straight to his wallet and straight to mine. So you can tip us in sats, and Fountain's even actually offering to, on top of the boost that you give us, give you 50,000 sats back as a reward for supporting your favorite Bitcoin show. So that'll be going on for the next 3 episodes. We'll be picking one winner to do a 50,000 sat free boost that they'll receive in their wallet, so that they can then turn around and give it right back to their favorite creators. So thanks, Fountain, for doing all that. Beautiful. Yeah, we're going to wrap it up there. So this has been episode, I lost track, man. I don't even know anymore, but this is Value Stack Podcast. Andrew, thank you so much for having us on, joining us today. And to all the listeners, we'll see you next time.